did you know that 1 in 4 people suffer from mental health conditions in this whole world? It can be work related mental health issue, particularly stress. It can be childhood traumas, it can be family pressures, it can be financial pressures. This video will be detailed to the point that a common man like me and you can easily understand what exactly is stress, what's the science behind it, how our body is capable of fighting stress on its own, but when exposed to too much stress, it leads to something very harmful in the long term. There will be a lot more aspects covered in this video, including what all you can do to reduce your stress levels, regulate your hormones better. So the next section would be understanding stress. Simplest definition for stress would be a natural reaction to a perceived threat. So whenever we receive some kind of threat, it might not be a physical threat necessarily, it might be a social or mental threat also. Our stress levels rise. What exactly happens when our stress levels rise? So two things happen, and because of those two things, a third thing also happens. The two things which happen are release of a few hormones and activation of some neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters basically carry messages from one cell to the other. So this is how our body internally talks to each other. The two main hormones which get activated are cortisol, you might have heard of this one, and the other one is adrenaline, which is also known as epinephrine. Cortisol is the hormone which fights stress. It's a stress fighting hormone, contrary to the myth or general opinion that it's a stress hormone. It's not exactly a stress hormone, it's more of a stress fighting hormone. What cortisol does is it raises energy levels by doing two things. Okay, it first raises the blood sugar levels, which basically increases the energy production rate in our body, and the second thing that it does is suppressing of the immune system. So it basically conserves energy in that way. The other hormone is adrenaline, which is also known as epinephrine. Adrenaline is the flight or fight hormone. Its basic purpose is make the body capable of immediate action. So it does 2-3 things in our body. The one is it increases the heart rate, it increases the blood pressure, and it dilates the airways, our whole body. So why it does this is to carry more oxygen to our muscles. So our muscles get strengthened in a way as soon as they receive more oxygen and more blood into them. So that is what adrenaline does. Now see, these hormones are very good for the short term. Like you've seen the impacts that they have. The energy levels are raised, the muscles become stronger temporarily. But in the long term, these physiological changes which happen. So one was hormone release, the second was neurotransmitters activation, and third is physiological changes which happen because of the first two. So these physiological changes which happen, including blood pressure rising, increased heart rate, etc. These are good for a short term because they allow you to get over the situation. They help you to tackle the situation, but in the long term they are quite harmful. We'll discuss that more in detail a little later. Now see, the evolutionary purpose of stress. Primitively, whenever what was considered as stress was more of a physical thing. So when humans saw a situation which physically threatened them, such as encounter with a predator, right, or any such dangerous situation where you have to physically protect yourself or your family, that is when the stress was active. Stress related responses were activated. However, now in the modern world, those kind of threats exist very less or to a very low magnitude compared to our primitive times. So what happens now is our body perceive threats differently. So it perceive threats in the form of work pressure or financial pressure. So those are the kind of threats our body now starts responding to, and those threats are more chronic in nature. So work pressure or financial pressure or even family pressure won't go in like 1 or 2 hours. Like threats from predators or any such physical situation was temporary, but these work related, family and financial related pressures are more chronic and more long term in nature, and that is why we face a lot more issues with stress nowadays. Just a quick section on the types of stress. There are two types of stress. One would be the acute or short term stress, which is good in nature to an extent. The other one would be a chronic or long term stress. See, acute or short term stress is good in a way that it helps you get things done. Like, for example, you have a work deadline that you need to cater to, and stress is something that will activate a lot of energy inside you. It will motivate you to work harder and probably achieve that deadline. But a long term stress is something like constant micromanagement from your boss, or not a healthy work environment, or not a healthy financial backup, anything of that sort. Maybe you don't have a job, or you're just starting a business and it's not growing the way you expected it to grow. So all those things add to stress, and you have to be very careful to balance out that stress with something else that helps reduce that stress. The next section would be very short. It would be just find the stressors that cause stress. Over the past few decades, three types of stressors have been most prevalent and most common. 33% of stress is caused due to work, 25% is due to family issues, 24% is due to financial issues, and 18% is due to other issues. The one stressor which has been rising very rapidly in the last decade is social media stress. So the digital age has taken over in the last decade, and the three major stress to social media are: one is comparison, the other one would be fear of missing out, FOMO, and the third one would be cyberbullying. So social media comes with advantages, but it has a lot of disadvantages also. A few practical techniques that I would like to discuss with you that can help you fight stress. See, honestly, it has taken me a lot of time to read all this, and moreover to select what needs to be conveyed through this video. So if you like the video till now, please feel free to give a thumbs up. The three basic techniques that you can apply right now, the practical techniques, I would explain them in detail also. The first one is deep breathing with slow exhalation. So you need to exhale very slowly. What that does is it activates something known as the parasympathetic nervous system, which is basically the opposite of the nervous system which releases the stress hormones. The parasympathetic nervous system calms you down. It reduces the production of cortisol and epinephrine. Second one would be a technique which is known as progressive muscle relaxation, so PMR. What you need to do in this is just tense your muscles really tight first, okay, and after 30 seconds or so just relax them completely. So that does two things in your body. The first is that it improves the blood flow in those particular regions which have just been relaxed after a lot of tensing up. The other is that it gets rid of metabolic waste in your body. So the basic thing, the basic outcome from this is that it increases the energy levels, it cleanses your body. The third thing would be something that calms your brain. It can either be meditation or it can be self-hypnosis. Self-hypnosis is something which has come up in the last few years, and it's very useful for people who can't really meditate, who can't really sit by themselves in a stationary position without any sensory input from anywhere. So if you can't meditate, you can try self hypnosis. Meditation is just sitting on a like, this is the easiest part of meditation. This is what I do for 10 minutes a day. You can do more obviously, but 10 minutes is something which I find practicable for me to sit besides my work and etc. and other things. So I just sit for 10 minutes on my bed or something. Make sure you have your back straight, and if you can, cross your legs. If you can't, just sit on a chair or something, and you just close your eyes and you just try to focus here on this particular portion with your eyes closed. And the objective is not to control your thoughts in any way, it's just to let them flow, but you not latching on to those thoughts. So let them flow from your mind. Just imagine one thought coming from here, and as soon as it reaches here, just let it go out on its own. What meditation is does for our body, one is that it reduces the size of amygdala. Amygdala is a portion in our body, in our brains, which processes emotions for us. So any stress, happy or sad emotion which we feel is processed by the amygdala. So meditation and other relaxation techniques like self hypnosis, there are others too which I can share with you in a bit. So meditation, I'll just call it meditation for now. So meditation helps reduce the size of amygdala, which in turn basically makes you more calm. The other thing which meditation does is it increases the gray matter in your brain. So gray matter is a region in the brain which is directly related to self-control. So the crux of it is that it increases your self-control also. So we discussed three things. One is deep breathing with slow exhalation. The other is progressive muscle relaxation. And the third is meditation or self-hypnosis. There are other things also. You can try yoga. Yoga is controlled physical actions with controlled breathing. You have something similar known as Tai Chi, which is slower physical actions with controlled breathing. You can try something known as aromatherapy, which has a lot to do with your sensory perception. Second thing which you can try is guided imagery. I don't want to cover the last four in too much detail because I personally feel the first three which I mentioned are good enough and more practicable to do right now. Even guided imagery is something you can do. It's just that you close your eyes and you imagine your happiest place. So it might be imagine anything that calms you down, and you just keep it here in the back of your head and you focus on that. You try to focus on that. You slowly bring that image forward to your eyes and then take it back again. And this is how guided imagery works. I always used to hear this, that you should exercise, etc. But I never really knew that it impacts the mind so much. See, obviously it has physical benefits. You look better, you feel better physically, that is there, but the impacts it has on brain are remarkable. And I'll be sharing some of these impacts here in this video, in this section. So physical activity, any type of physical activity, it does two things basically. It releases few hormones and few neurotransmitters. The major hormone which it releases is endorphin. And another neurotransmitter which it activates is norepinephrine. So if you would remember, I mentioned something like epinephrine as another name for adrenaline. So norepinephrine is kind of the opposite of that. It's basically the happiness hormone or happiness neurotransmitter, and endorphin is also the happiness hormone. It can also reduce symptoms of anxiety by reducing the reactivity of amygdala. Amygdala, I told you, It's the region of brain which processes emotions for us. Then it can regulate your natural circadian rhythm, which is basically your body cycle, body clock. So it can improve your sleep schedules. So if you have trouble sleeping on time, exercise or physical workout, a simple walk in the park or anywhere, a structured walk can help you. Studies have shown that there was a study, in fact, by the American Psychological Association in 2008, which showed that exercise or any physical activity has significant uh, effect on reducing depression and anxiety symptoms. See, ideally, the routine which you should follow is 150 minutes of cardiovascular activity per week, which means around 30 minutes of cardio per day. This might be little, and cardio doesn't always mean running or jogging. It can be walking also. That is also included in cardio. So 30 minutes for 5 days, and at least 2 days you should train weights also. So strength training at the same time is very important. If you can't go to the gym for some reason, you can do it at home also, but do some strength training also. You can do push-ups, or you can do many other body weight exercise like squats. If you have a pull-up bar, you can do pull-ups. Yep. The other part I want to talk to you about is nutrition. So it's not a technique, but this has a direct correlation with managing your stress levels. So I'll discuss the uncommon portions of nutrition, because the common ones you can easily find on Google. Eating whole foods, completing your micro and macronutrients, everything of that sort is very common. So I would focus on few specific aspects of nutrition that can help you directly deal with stress. Controlled sugar, less processed foods, more fiber, which is usually found in fruits. Healthy fats, which is usually found in nuts. Magnesium. So magnesium has a lot of benefits. I'll tell you a few. One is that it releases serotonin, which is the happy hormone, happy neurotransmitter. The other one is it regulates the HPA. HPA is something which you don't need to remember, but just for your information, it's known as the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. Okay, so this basically is responsible for the release of stress hormones, cortisol and epinephrine, which is adrenaline. Then it relaxes our blood vessels, which in turn improves the blood flow to the brain. So blood also carries oxygen, so it basically takes more oxygen to the brain, which in turn helps calm you down. So magnesium is one of the most important things to eat, which we ignore probably. The two major food sources which have magnesium would be avocado and bananas. Then we have vitamins, a few vitamins which you should include in your diet. One is vitamin B and the other is vitamin D. Vitamin B is found in eggs and certain dairy products. Vitamin D is found again in eggs and fish. Both these vitamins help in release of serotonin, which is again the happy neurotransmitter. So it lifts your mood in a way. Then omega-3 is something that you should include in your diet. It has a lot of benefits related to weight cutting and fat reduction also. Other than that, it improves your mood. It's found in fish, or you can directly have the tablets. It's also found in fish oil. So if that's something you can afford, you can take that also. The basic uses of omega-3 would include HPA regulation, which was there for magnesium also, and the other one would be maintaining a hormonal balance. So any hormonal imbalance which your body has, omega-3 can rectify that. That's why it's used for weight loss also. Next portion which I would like to discuss, which is very important for reducing stress in your life, is managing your time. So time management, simply put, is just managing your time in a way that you do something which needs to be done when it needs to be done. The consequences of lack of time management are multiple. One is obviously stress. The other would be reduced productivity. The third would be lower job satisfaction. Practical tips which I personally use. One would be write down my to-dos. Now you can write it down on paper. If you don't want to write it down on paper, you can use a to-do list on your phone. You can use your notepad on your phone. You can also use the calendar app, which is something I use very extensively. It helps me remind what is to be done at what time it needs to be done. I just set the reminder for that time. The other productivity tool that you can use to your benefit is something which is known as the Pomodoro technique. It basically means that you have about 25 minutes where you can work in an extreme focus, followed by a 5-minute break. If you are someone who can sit for a longer time, I would suggest you to explore something known as the ultradian cycle. Ultradian cycle is basically a bout of 90 minutes or something, 90 minutes or 100 minutes, where your body, especially your brain, is capable of extreme focus. So that 90 minutes is then followed by a gap of 20-30 minutes, a break of 20-30 minutes. But for that 90 minutes, you can extremely focus. You can get into a so-called flow state, and that is when you are most productive. The last tip, personally what I do is I sit for somewhere around 30 minutes or so, then I take a break for 2 to 5 minutes. So that is just a personal thing. The last thing which I would suggest not to do is multitask. Multitasking is something which leads to cognitive overload. Basically, it imposes a lot of things on your mind at the same time, on your brain at the same time, and it often leads to wrong decision making. So don't multitask. The last portion of this video would be something very dear to me. It's self-care. Okay, there are 3 aspects to self-care: physical, emotional, and social. So there are 5 segments to the physical self-care aspect, which I call as shame. So S for sleep, H for hydrate, A for appetite, M for meditate, and E for exercise. So sleep at least 7 to 9 hours, and make this a mantra for your life. Okay, at least 7 to 9 hours. Hydrate at least 2.5 liters water per day. Drink at least 2.5 liters water per day. Appetite is something we have covered earlier. Meditate also is something which we have covered, and exercise also we have covered. The other one is emotional. Emotional, I would say, pursue your hobbies. There you need to have at least one hobby. It can be playing an instrument, it can be reading, it can be watching such videos, or it can be self-improvement, it can be playing a sport. So have a hobby and do it at least once a week. The other one would be spend some family time every week. So some sort of family time you need to have every week in order to reduce stress. The third one is socialize. Have a group of friends, or have at least one friend who you can talk to and probably meet at least once a month or once in 2 months. And the other one is digital detox. You need to have a digital detox for at least 15 minutes a day, where you have structured yourself to be away from your phone, and no matter what notification comes, no matter who calls, you just have to be away from your phone for that 15 to 30 minutes, whatever suits you. Preferably keep this time before your bedtime, when you receive less notifications and less phone calls, and also it would help you to sleep better. Cheers, take care, see you in the next video.